Hello, it's Mr. Curtis, and now we're going to look at another piece of writing, and this time it's a bit more creative. Now, you should have had a booklet from your English teacher, or you should have downloaded it from the website, and the booklet will kind of support this and will help you build up your skills of the writing, because at the end of this, what we're going to expect from you to do is to do a bit of creative writing. Now, if we just look at where we are, so the recent assessment we've looked at has been a literature. Now we're now going to look at the language, and we're going to look at language paper 1, and we're going to have a look at question 5. Now if you look at the language papers, remember for English you get 2 GCSEs, you get GCSE English Language, and you also get GCSE English Literature. So you get an opportunity to get 2 different GCSE grades in English. So we're going to look at the language papers. Now, the way that language papers are structured is they start off with 4 questions about reading skills, and then the last part of it is going to be a writing. Now, depending on the paper, depends on what type of writing. So paper 1, that paper is all about fiction. So that's reading a short story, and then it's doing a piece of writing that's creative fiction writing. If we look at paper 2, you're going to read some non-fiction text, and then question 5 is a piece of writing that's writing a piece of non-fiction. So that's writing a letter, or writing a speech, or writing an article. And if you can see with the English language papers, it's 50-50, so equal weighting for both papers. Now we're going to have a look at question 5, the writing task. Now we always say as a school that we prefer students to do question 5 first when you come to the paper. So even though it's right at the end of the paper, we prefer students to do it first when they do the exam paper, because if we're honest, when are you going to be best at your handwriting, best at spelling, best at using punctuation? It's probably going to be in the first 45 minutes of the exam. What happens usually is students leave this question right to the end, and when you've been writing for about an hour, you're not at your best for the last 45 minutes. So the paper will get something like this for question 5. So you'll be given a choice. So it will usually be a picture, a painting, or a photograph, and you'll be asked to create a piece of writing. Now it would always be creative writing, so it would be something imaginative. So here we've got a made-up reason: a local newspaper is running a creative writing competition and they intend to publish the winning entries. So you can see that you've got an option, and the key thing here is either or. You only write one. So you either do the picture, describe a journey, or you do the story. Now the paper can change, but at the moment it generally is 2 things. It's either a picture, starting of an idea, or it's the second bit, which is a story, and you're given an idea for a story. But the whole thing is about being creative. Now, some key points on the paper itself. You're going to have 45 minutes to write this, and you have to get used to writing for 45 minutes. Now on average we say students for this paper you're going to spend 15 minutes planning and 30 minutes writing. So really you need to build up your writing speed to about 10 minutes a paragraph. If you can do more, then that's great, but that's what you're trying to work on. So your writing speed is the thing, and it's the thing that holds a lot of students back, because they just panic and then they just write very, very little. The key thing is that you're looking to show to an examiner what you can do. And if you write very, very little, you're showing the examiner that you can't do that much. So it's important that you write. And the other thing is that we're not looking for pages and pages. You're not expected to write a novel. And actually, 3 paragraphs is enough. Now, the key thing you need to remember about this is that it's 50% of the overall GCSE paper. So it's half marks. And so really you do have to spend the appropriate time, thought and care on it. as you do the other questions. And in fact, it's probably worth more than the other questions. And so you really do have to think about it. And if we think about 50%, on average, half marks is a grade 4. So your writing is key for helping you get that grade 4 or above. Now, why else is it important? Well, actually, if we look at the overall GCSE paper, if you look at the two GCSEs combined together, you're looking at 50% of the marks are gained from your writing. Now that means on each paper, your writing tasks are worth 25% of the overall GCSE. So this question is worth 25% of your overall GCSE. Now, if you get full marks, you've got 25% of your GCSE grade. And if we do that twice, then you've got that grade 4 definitely. All right, but we can't rely on you getting full marks. We have to work on that basis. Planning is key, and that's the really, really important thing that you need to remember. You cannot write a fantastic story straight away. You do need to think about. How your story is going to be organised, structured, and the sort of things that you're going to include it. Now, the other videos are going to help you with that. 3 paragraphs is what you're aiming for. Now, we're not looking for 3 small, tiny little paragraphs. We're looking for 3 detailed paragraphs. Yes, you can write more than 3 paragraphs, but what you've got to make sure that you have got 3 quality paragraphs and not just rubbish, because anybody could write 3 paragraphs, but it's got to be quality. And the problem that some people think in English is that if you write loads, that equals a top mark. Now, that might be the case for other subjects, but it's not for English, because really it's the quality of your communication that gets you the marks. You could write 17 pages, but actually your work wouldn't get better mark than the student who wrote 3 really effective paragraphs and stuck to those 3 paragraphs. So don't think that writing lots is the secret to getting a higher grade. So what will you get the most marks for? Well, the most marks will be for creativity and style. We want something, and the examiner wants something that's interesting. They don't want something that's predictable, obvious, and pretty repetitive. When you think of the examiners mark about 200 papers at once. So when they see the same thing repeated again and again and again, it's not very creative for them. So you want to be taking this story or taking this idea and doing something original and creative with it. And also, you need to think about this in terms of writing style. This is not normal writing. A lot of students write something that they want to read. And actually, most students want to write a blockbuster or the latest Marvel film or whatever, what interests them. And you've got to think about the examiner is not you. So what you think is interesting is not going to be interesting for an examiner. So you trying to do, Avengers and trying to fit it into 3 paragraphs is not effective. The amount of explosions is not interesting. And my best advice is try and think of the examiner as being an old person, and think, would they be interested in sitting in front of something where there's lots of death, murder and explosion? They wouldn't be. Think about mature and thoughtful ideas. How can you present this description in an interesting way? What can show that you're actually mature and intelligent person? So how could you describe something in that way? And that's quite a shift in a way. You're not trying to make it exciting and interesting. You're trying to make it interesting and thoughtful. And that's kind of a big shift in terms of your writing. And this is what I've mentioned before. You are not writing a story for yourself. So forget about yourself and what you find interesting. Write about something that an examiner would be interested about. You are writing for an examiner, for a stranger. You are not writing for your friend. And so you're not trying to recreate Game of Thrones in 3 paragraphs or whatever show. You're trying to be interesting for a complete stranger. And imagine that they are, you know, old and fuddy-duddy. That would help you better, make your writing better, than just kind of going trying to go, well, somebody was murdered and somebody was stabbed. Vocabulary and sentence structure are really important. That's what's going to help push a lot of students to get better with their writing, and not just, you know, a simile here and there. It is showing off you're more thoughtful with your choices of words. You're varying the sentence structure that you'll use. You're going for variety. Now, watch out for the other videos, because we will go into more detail, and we'll explore what you can do to make your writing better and make your writing effective. There will be, on Show My Homework, a small little quiz for you to complete, which will make sure that you have taken note of some of the ideas and the key points that we're talking about in these videos. Good luck!